is Izzy at Minerva. Today's video we are looking at a new series all about dart manipulation. We're going to start this series today and then we're going to have a series of other little videos which look at rotating our dart for our bodice block around and looking at the impact of that on our block as we move the dart, bust dart, around our block to different locations. This is a really fun technical experience. What we're not doing here is creating a fully finished top. All we're looking at is the impact of moving the dart around on our block. You may well find as you do this process that you find a dart location for your bust that you just really love, that looks amazing on you and that you just feel really comfortable with. It may be that it's the shoulder dart, it may be that it's to the side, or maybe to the arm side dart, or it may be that you just want everything all merged into your waist in terms of all the volume coming out of that location. It's completely up to you. And this little series is really exciting because it just goes to show like where the different locations are for the darts that you can move them to, and also then the visual impact that that creates. As I said, we are not creating finished tops. I'm not showing you finishes or zips or buttons or any of that. We're going to be looking at how to create certain tops and adapt our block to make top styles in the next series. This one is all about technically looking at what happens when we move our dart and it's getting confident with that. So I'm going to sew this up today for you and so that you can see the impact as well, so that you can see the visual impact. This is going to be really fun, so let's get straight into it. In today's video, we're going to be looking at rotating the bust dart from the neck across to the shoulder. I'm going to be using the pattern blocks which are bespoke to me. These are printed just for the sake of the video so you can see them really clearly, but you are going to want to trace over your block, and actually you're only going to want to trace over your front bodice block, not your back. That will just stay exactly the same for the purpose of this video. So go and trace over your front bodice block to start off with, and then we're going to get into manipulating it and moving it around. You will notice that my block is going to look different to yours. That's because mine has been adapted and fitted to fit my body beautifully, and yours will be the same. You'll have gone through the process with me of drafting out your bodice and then making all the fit alterations that you need until you get a bodice block that you're happy with. So yours will look different to mine, but the principles of what I'm showing you today, you can apply to yours exactly. So let's get straight into it. You're going to need the following tools, which are listed next to me right now, to continue this pattern drafting series with me. The most fundamentally important things are obviously your bespoke body block and also some tracing paper and calico so that you can then sew up your block and see the impact of the effects that we're doing today. Okay, so to start off with, trace over your block. It's important to note that for our block, our bust dart goes all the way down to our apex. However, when we're actually creating patterns, we don't often have the dart going directly to the apex. We usually stop the dart a couple of centimeters away from the apex, so we sort of shorten it a little bit. So it's great that we've done this for our body block, but as we start translating our block into patterns, that's where we're going to start to shift around things and move things around a little bit. So let's do that together. If this is our shoulder seam here, to start off with, I just want you to find the midpoint of your shoulder seam up here. Mark that on. Then draw a line from that point to your apex. This will be where our new dart line is going to go. We want to move our dart from here so it's no longer pointing up to the top of the neck, and we want to rotate it around to here. Next, grab a pair of scissors and cut down your new line that you've just drawn all the way down to the apex. Next, we're going to cut down our original bust dart. We're going to leave a pivot point when we reach the apex. All we're going to do now is to close up this dart here. Pop that in place there and just sellotape that down. So very simply, we've now moved the volume from the dart that was here to here. It's now opened up this shoulder point here, but when that closes up and when we sew it together, it should line up exactly. that's nice and neat, just like that, to create that nice straight shoulder seam. So that's all very well, and we've moved that across. However, when we're drafting pattern pieces, we don't necessarily want the point of our dart to go right to our apex. Instead, I want to offset it about 2 centimeters from the apex so that we don't get a really sharp point at the point of our bust. We don't really want that, do we? We just want a nice smooth curve going over our apex at that point. So find the centre of your dart width up here, mark a point there and draw that line all the way from there to the apex. Then mark a point that is 2 centimeters offset from the apex. I'm going to use my black pen now just to draw in my new dart. We've basically moved the dart now. All we now need to do is to actually cut out our pattern piece to reflect this change to our block. So go and grab your back bodice piece and pop that down on the table next to your block. Next, take some tracing paper and just lay it over your pattern pieces. We're then going to create our pattern pieces from our block. Obviously, we've not got any seam allowances yet because our block is just fitted so that it fits our shape exactly with no seam allowances. So we're going to draw those in together now. Start off by just drawing your centre front line exactly over the front. Next, we're going to draw around our neck curve following the line of the block. Now then, at this point when we hit the shoulders, we want to allow a 1.5 centimetre seam allowance to the top of our shoulders. I'm actually then just going to dash in my centre line of my dart just so I can see where that is nice and clearly. Extend your dart legs up and then just tidy that up at the top. Our arm side has no seam allowance because we're not attaching it to anything else. However, our side seam does have a seam allowance. Just follow your waistline as it is. Once again, we're not attaching this to anything. And then draw in your waist dart. At this point, we're going to annotate our pattern piece just so we don't forget exactly what we've done. Otherwise, you're going to end up with so many different pattern pieces. They're all going to merge into one and you'll forget which is which. So when we're doing our front bodice, it's always a good idea to mark on the pattern piece where your apex is. So just pop a little cross at that point. We also need to note that we're going to be placing our centre front on the fold. So annotate that next. Next, our grain line is going to run parallel to our centre front and then name the pattern piece. We're going to call this shoulder dart front bodice, and then I'm going to say cut one on fold. Perfect. Repeat that whole process for your back bodice. Don't forget that for our back bodice we need to allow for an opening along the centre back. Otherwise we won't be able to get our head in. So add that 1.5 centimetre seam allowance to the back bodice. Perfect. Once you've added your seam allowances to your pattern pieces, cut those out and then cut them out of your fabric, making sure you're transferring all of the dart lines using whatever method you want. Excellent. So once you've cut out your two pattern pieces, your front and your back, we're then going to pin and sew the darts. If you're not sure exactly how to do this, you can refer back to video 22, which was where we did a really detailed video all about how to cut and sew your toile. This technique of sewing up the darts is exactly the same as that one. So if you're not sure, go and check that out. Okay, excellent. Once you have pinned all of your darts in place, we're going to move on and sew them using our sewing machine. I am using a contrasting thread so you can see it clearly on the screen above. However, for you, you're probably going to want to use a thread that just matches up with your fabric beautifully. Excellent. So once you've sewn those 4 darts, we're then going to move on and do the same for our back pattern pieces. Now, obviously for here, we've got 2 separate pieces, but the process is exactly the same. So just continue to sew your 4 darts for your back piece and then we'll sew it together. Next, I just want you to iron those darts, all of them, towards the side seams, wherever those side seams might be. So go and grab your ironing board and your tailor's ham so that you can iron a nice gentle curve across those darts. Excellent. So we've now ironed and pressed our darts in place. With right sides together, we are going to place the back on top of the front and just pin it down the side seam and also up here at the shoulder seam. Once you've pinned one side in, just grab the other side and repeat that same process. Pinning the side seam and the shoulder seam. I'm now going to sew those 4 seams using a 1.5 centimetre seam allowance because that is what we drafted. So go and grab your sewing machine and sew those 4 seams with me. Excellent. So once you've sewn those side seams and the shoulder seams, I'm going to ask you to just go ahead and press them open. And then we're going to go try it on and see what it looks like. All right, let's go. That's such an interesting process, isn't it? To move that dart around and just see what impact that has aesthetically when you put the dart onto the shoulder seam. Really fun. I hope you've really enjoyed today listening and watching and joining in with making those adaptations to your bodice block. If you've got any comments or questions, feel free to post them below the video. We always love to hear from you all here at Minerva. We do have lots more of these videos for you to enjoy watching and joining in with, so do keep an eye out for our weekly posts are all about how to draft and adapt your bodice block. This has been so fun. Thank you for joining me today. I will see you next time.